All right. So, as I like to say with these things, as long as everything is working the way that it should be working, we are now live. So, hello and welcome to everyone who is watching the Melanin Channel. Wherever this day may have found you, I'm so glad that you are here. My name is Chelsea, and I write books about black girls who aren't all that nice. And I totally forgot to take off the book of the week before I started this. So, whatever. It's here. It's there. It's Tuesday. Yeah. Hi, you guys. How are y'all doing? Shout out to everyone who is already in the chat. So shout out to Jay Monet, Darian Walker, and Benjamin, who are all in the chat this morning. Good morning. I hope you guys are doing well. It is Tuesday, and the internet has been the place it has always been. Let's say that. So we have lots of things to discuss this morning. So yeah. Greetings first. So shout out to Ash who came in. Good day. Deja is here as well. Hello, Vina is here. Good morning. How are you guys? That is crazy how that just popped in after the fact. Interesting. Anyway, if you guys are coming in, y'all can see the poll that is going on currently about what to start with. We're having a clear winner as of right now, but we'll see. Also, TEB is here. Good morning, everyone. Hope you guys are doing well. So gonna let you guys know this while we are all getting settled. We now have memberships on the channel. I'm still getting it set up, but if you're watching this and you've always wanted to join the after chat and you're just like, Chelsea, I'm not signing up for a Patreon, you can now just join us on YouTube and you can watch it there. Isn't that great? Isn't that wonderful? Isn't that fantastic? I think so. Anyway, it's there, so get into it. We are still setting it up. Literally clicked on it and got it set up this morning. So there's still things that are like moving, changing and things, but you can do that. I want to get it set up so that you guys can see when people purchase books for the pre-order the Melanin Magic and the Melanin. Good Lord, let me talk. Let me be great. But I have to set that up as well. So there are things coming, you guys. There are things coming. I don't know if I can actually set that up while I'm live, but I am going to try to because I like to live recklessly. That is just who I am. Ooh, am I going to? I don't even know if what is my Streamlabs? I don't even know what the login is. I logged in all the time. Yep, nope, I tried. But I don't know the login off the top of my head. Anywho, La is here. Hello. Good morning. Not me forgetting to change the background. Jesus be offense. Okay. I be trying, y'all. I really do. But sometimes it just don't be happening. There we go. Now the topic is correct. That being said, let's go ahead and get into this book of the week. That way we can get into this conversation. So, book of the week. I actually found this on TikTok this morning and I want to read it. Like, this is a genuine, like, I would like to read this book at some point type novel. It is Sky Full of Elephants. Let me just move this to the correct place so that I don't have to be looking all crazy. It's called Sky Full of Elephants by, I think you say his name either, I think it's Sibo Campbell. I am not 100% sure. But this book came out this month, so on September 10th. And the girl on TikTok, I'm going to just read all the description and then y'all understand why I was like, this is probably right up my alley. You know, it's probably up my mom's alley too, but you know, we are who we are. Anyway, Sky Full of Elephants by Sibo Campbell. I'm hoping I'm saying this name right. In a world without white people, what does it mean to be black? One day, a cataclysmic event occurs. All of the white people in America walk into the nearest body of water. A year later, Charlie Brunton is a black man living in an entirely new world. Having served time in prison for a wrongful conviction, he's now a professor of electric and solar power systems at Howard University when he receives a call from someone he wasn't even sure existed. His daughter, Sydney, a 19-year-old left behind by her white mother and stepfamily. Traumatized by the event and terrified of the outside world, Sydney has spent a year, but neither of them are prepared for this new world and how they see themselves in it. Heading south toward what is now called the Kingdom of Alabama, everything Charlie and Sydney thought they knew about themselves and the world will be turned upside down. Brimming with heart and humor, Sibyl Campbell's astonishing debut novel is about the power of community and connection, about healing and self-actualization, and a reckoning with what it means to be Black in America in both their world and ours. So, that, obviously, if y'all know me, if y'all have interacted with me, this obviously is intriguing. And the girl who I saw on TikTok, I don't remember her name. I did not grab the link for it. It literally just popped up on my TBR and I was like, oh, okay. She made it sound really interesting. So, and it didn't seem like she had the physical copy and it didn't seem that long. So I was like, okay, this could be for me. The only reason that I did not like immediately jump on it is because my library, y'all, I need to do better because library sign up card was literally just the other week or whatever. Y'all, tell me why my library card is expired. And I'm like, oop. So I have 2 library cards. I have one from when I lived in Texas and then one from Charlotte. I forgot to pay my out-of-state fees for my Irving one. So I'm like, I need to get it. So when I went to the library to download it, they have a copy, but I can't check it out because my library card's not active. So if it sounds interesting to you, let me know. But this is definitely one that I want to get into most likely sometime this year. I'm a try. Y'all know me in books. I make no promises, but that's the goal. That's the goal. That being said, you guys, there have been some authors behaving badly on the internet for the last couple of days. And I don't know. It's interesting. It's always interesting when it comes across my feed because I'm like, surely people don't act like this. Like, surely people know better, right? No, apparently not. So we ran a poll. I'm going to go ahead and end it because yeah, I'm pretty sure everybody voted, right? But the winner for this particular poll was authors complaining about TBRs, right? So if you guys, I included the link to the thread down in the description box. So if you go all the way down to the bottom, you'll see it. But basically, to my understanding, right? I don't know where this was originally posted because it's a screenshot and it's got everything like blacked out or whatever. Where we get in the tea, I've tried to stay away from it, but watching it has been interesting. Yeah, this one came from Threads. So like I said, there's a link to it down in the description box below. But basically, there's an author and their name is blacked out. So I don't know who said it or again on what platform. This looks like it could be a thread, but it could also be Twitter. At this point, who knows? Who knows? It's in light mode. I can't tell. All my stuff is in dark mode. So anyway, the author said, I don't know who needs to hear this, but telling an author that you put their Kindle Unlimited book on your TBR while they're begging people to read it is literally saying, someday I'm going to give you $2. Isn't that cool? And expecting us to be excited about that. Like, I'm really happy that people are excited and adding to the TBR, but my car is being repossessed this week and my bank account has $10 in it. Your TBR is where my dream is dying. I'm tired of being grateful for people not reading my book. And obviously, that had mixed responses, if you will. That was my same train of thought. If it is in dark mode, I don't know where it came from. So yeah, I don't know who, why, or what started this. I mean, the thing is, this author is clearly spiraling out because her card's getting repossessed and life be life and for all of us. So I can't even be mad about that, right? The thing is, she's taking it out on a reader who literally said, I would like to read your book. And I feel like it's interesting and maybe it's a nuance of the conversation. Because Kindle Unlimited is a little bit different. I'm not a part of KU. I did it once. Really wasn't my vibe. And so I haven't been back in it in like years, right? So it could be a little bit different. But the basic idea, if you're watching this, you're like, Chelsea, I have no idea what KU or Kindle Unlimited is Kindle Unlimited is basically Amazon's subscription service. You sign up for it and you can read pretty much as many books as you want in their service for books that are signed up for it, right? And it's basically, they advertise it as like sign up for the subscription, then you get to read books for free, right? You're not, because you're paying for it, but I digress, right? But the idea is with Kindle Unlimited, authors get paid for each page that is read, right? And so a lot of authors go for that because it works out that way. Even if you don't read the entire book, they still get paid, whatever. It's the crazy thing about this is that if someone says, hey, I'm adding your book to my TBR, to my understanding, that means that they're adding it to the list of books that they actually want to read. Like, obviously, everybody has an incredibly long TBR, right? That's just the nature of like reading books. But to be spinning out because that person didn't immediately go read your book, like, I feel like that's wild. I feel like that's so crazy. Like, what? And then to do it so publicly, and then to be like, well, my car is getting repossessed. I don't know, babes. One person reading your book is not going to keep your car from being repossessed. That's a choice, right? But it's also like, the other part of it is like, as an indie author, I get it. I really do, because we live in an economy, especially in America, where it's just like everything's expensive. Everything is expensive, and trying to be creative and live off of your creativity is hard. It is hard. It's hard to eat off of your creativity. But at the same time, that one book, like Darius said, that car is gone. Like, we did not get here off of people not reading your book in KU. And if we did, it's like, I don't know, other alternatives have to be addressed at some point. Like, I don't know. There's so many variables to this, and I don't want to make light of somebody getting their car repossessed, because like, that's real and that sucks, and I hate that for them. But I also dislike the idea of authors getting on the internet and then going off on readers because they didn't immediately drop everything that they were doing to just go read your book. Like, I have friends, like genuine friends, who were like, I want to read your book, Chelsea, and I'm waiting for it, and I still have to plan that out with them months in advance. Like, hey, I'm going to be done on this day. Can you make some room in your schedule? Right? It's like, at the end of the day, you're asking people to do something for free and for fun, and to get mad at them because they didn't read your book immediately. Like, that's crazy. That's crazy to me. And then to like give yourself a bad rap for being a bad author. It's like, even if they were going to read it, now you've just acted crazy on the internet because of it. And now it's like, well, if I was going to read it, if it was at the top of the TBR, it literally just dropped down to the bottom. So yeah. Ash saying that should have stayed in the drafts. That should have never left the verbality of her home. Okay. Like, that's something you talk verbally to like your mom or your husband about, right? That is not something that you put in writing to anyone. Like, how dare this reader put my book on their TBR? That's just crazy. Let's see. I didn't see anything about this on Twitter, so it's probably on Threads. I stay away from there. Honestly, I kind of like Threads because it's the thing I like about Threads is people really just be like, I don't know, I don't want to say spilling the tea, but like, they really just be going ham on people on Threads. And I'm like, wow, I thought Twitter was wild. Threads is crazy. Threads is unhinged. And I'm just like, I do not have to search very far ever for whatever is happening. Whatever chaos is happening on Threads, I find it almost immediately. And I'm like, I love this, but I'm also like, I'm not a part of this. I'm not participating. I am not participating. But yeah. Also, T.A. Summers is here. Hello, welcome, friend. I hope you're doing well. Let's see. Rich said there were decisions made that led to that car being repoed and had nothing to do with the reader. And I feel like that's also it, because it's like there are levels to this, right? And it's so crazy because it's just like, I understand wanting to live off of your creativity. That's how I live my life. I fully understand and respect and appreciate that. But I also am always, in every interview, in every situation, it's like there's a certain level of privilege that you have to be able to have access to in order to do that, in order to make the leap and be like, I'm going to do this full time. And one of those is being able to eat and like cover your bills and stuff. And it's like, I'm always very clear. The reason I'm able to do this full time is because I have a husband who is like, okay, I will be the responsible one. You can be the creative one and we'll make it work. And even then it's still like a struggle, right? It's not all cake and roses. It's not all cake and roses trying to live off of one stable income in America. Like that's choices have to be made. And it's just like, I don't know. I feel like if you're at the point where your car is being repossessed, there are decisions that led up to that point. And it didn't start with somebody didn't read your book on Kindle Unlimited. Like we're past that point. We're past that point. We've passed the point of, taking out loans. We've passed the point of ask the bank of mom and dad. We've passed the point of like, we've gotten so far past getting a reader to read a book at this point. I feel like this thing was unfortunately just the thing that kind of like broke this particular author and had them spiraling out on the internet. Like it was just, that was the thing. That was the final straw that day. And that sucks. It's just, this is why we need friends. Because I have definitely, for sure, absolutely drafted a couple things. And I sent it to like Ben and my author council. I was like, what if I say this? And they were like, don't do it, Chelsea. That is a bad idea. That is a bad idea. Do not send this to literally anyone else. I'm like, okay. I'm clearly in an emotion right now, so I'm gonna trust your judgment. But if I calm down and I still think this is a good idea, I'm gonna do it. Usually it doesn't, and that's why I can still be on the internet. Usually it wasn't a good idea to begin with. Yeah. Let's see here. Why don't authors invest in diaries? Why can't folks be like Alicia Keys? It's because that's too easy. Also, Benjamin, you said that most people aren't able to pay bills from KU. I would argue that is, I wouldn't say most people. I would say that you have to be prolific. I know that there are people who pay bills from KU, right? It's just those people are usually, being honest, they have a lot of books and they've been doing this for years. It's usually not the person who has just uploaded their first book to KU and it goes crazy. I mean, it happens for sure, but it doesn't always happen that way. It doesn't usually happen that way. And I feel like there's a lot associated with being an author where people are just like, oh, the norm is you drop a book and then you take off. And it's just like, nah, baby doll, that's not how this is set up. That's not how you win this game. Not for the majority of people. There are definitely some cases like Kimberly Lemming. I always feel like she's an exception to like all of the common advice because she literally did that. She dropped her book on KU and went crazy. And now she's a traditionally published author who's living her best author life, right? And I love that for her. But it doesn't happen like that for most people. And I feel like a lot of people have this weird idea that that's what they should expect when they become an author, or they look at all these other people who are like, yeah, just put it on KU, or they show their numbers. Because I feel like that's the other thing. Like, this is going to sound so crazy. Is this an unpopular take? I don't know if this is an unpopular take, but I've noticed like an uptick of people showing like their pages read or whatever. But it's because they made their book free for a certain period of time. Or they're like, oh, y'all have me #1 in all categories, but it's like your book is free. So it's like, yeah, it's really a lot easier. I'm not gonna say it's simple. It's a lot easier to get your book in those categories when it's free. The hard part is getting people to buy your book and do those same kind of numbers, right? And I feel like there are a lot of people who do that, and it creates this skewed image or picture of what it's like to be an author. Not y'all talk about you're gonna stay away from threads. I'm dead. Too many authors be quiet on Twitter, but over on threads you got to pick your platform. Choose your fighter, I guess. Also, money won't hit your account immediately if someone buys your book. It's that part. Like Amazon, I will say this. Amazon is faster than other outlets because you only have to wait. You get paid like once a month, right? But for most outlets, you have to wait like 30, 60, 90 days. Like it's not an immediate payout. And I think that's another thing that people don't understand with authoring. Like if you were trying to save up for Christmas, you don't need to run a sale in November trying to get book money in December. You need to run a sale in like September or October to get money for December. It takes a while. That's what I'm saying. Like, there's so much that goes on behind the scenes that I think a lot of people get into and they don't understand. Like, even with KU, right? You can see those numbers go up, but that money not gonna hit your account until months later. Months later. So appropriate planning. Let's see here. This reminds me of that one author that is always begging for money, then making terrible choices, and then still begs for money. That part. Literally. As someone who is a creator on the internet, and a large part of what I do is asking people to like buy merch and buy books and sign up for my Patreon and like support. The one thing that I never want to do is be like, I have been supporting Chelsea, but like, where is this money going? And I'm just like, money goes to the Melanin Library. Money goes so that we can pay bills and continue to do what I'm doing. I try to be very clear about that. So slight plug, if you guys want this hoodie full of Black authors, so you walk around with a recommendation always, it's linked in this video. And you can also get pre-order the Magic of the Melanin Anthology. Support Black authors because all the pre-order funds are being split evenly among the contributing authors. So if you're about supporting Black authors for real, go ahead and pre-order the anthology. We have a goal in mind so that everybody can make a decent chunk of change off of what we're doing. But I also don't want to say what that goal is until we hit it, because I don't want people to be like, well, I'm not going to get it. Anyway, I'm rambling. I'm really rambling. Point is, pre-order the anthology. It's really helpful. And honestly, I've read all the stories that are going in the anthology at this point. It's going to be a good anthology. And if you like Black fantasy, you're going to be fed. You're going to love this. So I'm going to leave it at that, but get it if you like. It is linked to this video. So yeah, get into it. But yeah, this reminds me of that person on Twitter talking about authors to write white stories to cover immediate bills like eviction. That's crazy. I just feel like if you have an immediate bill, authoring is no longer the journey that you need to be on. Like, not trying to be funny, but like, if we are, hypothetically speaking, like if we are in September going into October, right? We're in September. If I know that going into November, I'm going to be evicted from my house, babes, I am hitting up Target, I'm hitting up McDonald's, I'm hitting up Burger King. If I have an immediate bill, I'm going to go look for an immediate solution. I am not going to be like, okay, well, let me just crank out another 20,000 words, set that up and post it to Amazon or KU. That's crazy. Also, Rachel, have a good day. Thank you for stopping in. I hope your day is amazing. But yeah, I don't know. It's just writing white characters in order to sell a book is just something personally, that's where I draw the line. That's just something that I personally would not feel comfortable doing. Oh, J Monet coming in with a reminder to discuss the scammer turned author. So I feel like we might have touched on this last week. I know we shared it in the after chat. So slight plug to sign up for the memberships or the Patreon to get into the after chat. But if y'all don't know, a couple weeks ago, we talked about this scammer, right? This book talker who was like, okay, hey, I like DM authors and ask them to pay for my services in order to promote their books, right? And it's just kind of like, okay, that's interesting. But apparently, on top of reaching out to authors and being like, pay me to promote your book, and then not in fact promoting the book, and then being dragged across the internet, she has decided, oh my gosh, you guys, I'm going to write a book. And it's just like, yo, how did we get here? I feel like at some point there should definitely be a conversation of like the pipeline between book reviewer to now I'm writing a book. I feel like that should be like looked at and discussed, because I know that there are some people who genuinely like they want to write a book and this was always going to be the natural progression. But I also feel like with the rise of like book talkers, bookstagrammers, book reviewers, book communities or whatever, in respective places and those people getting platforms, I feel like it's then like, oh, I should write a book versus I want to write a book. And it's just like, they have ideas and vibes, but there's so much more that goes into a book other than idea and vibes. Like, follow me, craft and skill. And it's just like, those two things, you can't have one without the other. You can't have one without the other. And I find it interesting that she's now like, I'm writing a book. And I'm like, okay, homie, you keep that energy when you're an author and you're trying to promote said book and people take your money and don't do anything with it because they're like, oh my God, I was tired. That's crazy. I find that incredibly wild and audacious. The caucasity is wild with this one. And I'm just kind of like, I will watch it play out, but I like to stay in my lane, on my little side of the book talk, black bookstagram, you know. That's it. Because the thing is, as an author, if you're gonna pay somebody, the only way I would pay for something is if it was a blog tour. Like, literally, I'm paying somebody else to set up all of the book reviewers and things like that. Like, there's no way that I would reach out to an individual and be like, hello, person A, can I send you money to read my book and talk about it? Like, that's just so wild to me. Especially since so many people only talk about the things that so many readers are mood readers. So it's just kind of like, I don't know. I feel like that's such a gamble. But let's see here. I wouldn't say most people are putting in enough work to pay bills from KU. Fair. Okay, fair. I've heard stories from authors on payout that it isn't instant, so I've been keeping that in mind with my projects. Yeah, it's definitely not instant. It's not instant. Nothing about, even when you're indie, nothing about publishing is fast, unfortunately. Even if you are just trying to get books for an event, you have to plan that out months in advance. Nothing about it is quick. The authors who swear that they have to write white characters to pay their bills always get an eye roll from me. They get an eye roll and not a dime. Not a dime. Because I'm also one of those readers where I'm just kind of like, I want to know that I can trust you. And if you are like, sometimes my books are like this and sometimes my books are like that, in the sense of like the core themes of what you write, not like genre, not like type, but the core like themes. Because the thing is, and this is maybe again an unpopular opinion, but I'm one of those people where I'm like, as an author, you cannot 100% fully detach who you are from what you write. So it's just kind of like, if you can switch up like that, I don't trust you. This is weird. This is crazy. No, thank you. I do not want to participate. Let's see here. There's such a toxic rumor and a lie. I forgot what we were talking about. I don't know what that was referring to. Ben said, don't forget to like the stream. So he said it, not me. Let's see here. Cherry Reese is here. Hello. Welcome, love. I hope you're doing well. I've noticed a lot of newer creatives don't realize that some of us have day jobs. Yeah, most people have day jobs. Like I said, and if you have the privilege of like being able to do this full time, great. But most people have day jobs, and I can only think of a handful of people who do this full time. And I've been talking to a lot of authors. Even very successful, traditionally published authors still have day jobs. So it's just kind of like unless you are really out here churning out books left and right and you have a huge readership. Like, the only person who I can think of who is really doing this full time without any like outside stressors is Kim. Like, Kim is the only one who I can think of who's like, yeah, I do this. I write books and that's it. Like, that's it. And even then, it's just like, she writes all the time. Like, she has a book coming out like every year, you guys. Like, she has books coming out every year, and then she has novellas, and then she's on like contract and deadline. Like, she's working. And I feel like that's the other thing that people who are new to authoring don't necessarily realize. It's like, yeah, people are on the internet and stuff and talking about writing, and we all collectively make jokes like, oh, I should get off of Twitter and write. But you realize that when you don't see them, 9 times out of 10, that's exactly what they're doing. They are literally writing. They are literally creating books. And it's just like, it's more than an aesthetic. It's a job. And for a job that you create for yourself, that you do in isolation, you have to show up for it. And if you don't, it will not get done. And I feel like that's the other thing, right? Like, it's very easy to be like, yeah, I'm just going to do this. I'm just going to write a book. That should only take me 3 months. There's a reason why it takes some people years to write a book. It is not the easiest thing to do in the world. Not to write a good one, anyway. But yeah. Everybody who loves books don't need to write one. Facts. These people can't even review books properly, and we're supposed to accept them writing books. Let's talk about that. Because one of my biggest pet peeves, right? Oh, am I going to talk about this? I said I wasn't. I might talk about it in the after chat. That might be the way to go. Yeah. We'll talk about that in the after chat, because I have opinions about who should be reviewing books and awards and things like that. So I'm just going to go ahead and drop this here as a reminder. Okay, so boom. It's there. So slight reminder to go ahead and sign up for the after chat if you haven't already. It's where we talk about the things that I can't say on a public live. But yeah, I wonder how she would promote it. Certainly not through reviewers or influencers. Probably not. Also, Read Left Listeners here. Good morning. Hope you're doing well. I think people don't see the work behind the scenes, and it takes a lot of different skills to write, promote, and network a book. That's the thing. And that's part of the reason why with this channel and with the podcast and with all the things that I do, I try to make it very clear that being an author is so much more than writing the book. Like, writing the book is the easy part of being an author. And that is not easy. It's not easy to do it well, right? But it's just like, once you write the book, you have to revise the book, right? You have to figure out how to network. You have to figure out, okay, how am I going to market this book? Especially if you're going to be an indie author. Being an indie author is not for the weak of heart. It really is not. Because it can be so frustrating. It can be so overwhelming, especially if you are trying to eat off of your creativity and the numbers aren't numbering the way that you want them to, and you're doing all the things and all of the tips and the tricks and the hacks, and you're manifesting and praying about it and showing up and doing all this. It is a lot of work. And it's a lot of work that you have to do consistently. And it's a lot of work where you have to network with people. And it's also kind of tenuous, because it's just like, who you network with and who you choose to be in community with is in a lot of ways going to determine what kind of opportunities you get. It's going to, in a lot of ways, determine what conversations you get into. And I think a lot of authors especially, do not consider that, because they're like, oh, I'm indie, I can do what I want. And it's like, yes, you can do what you want, but at the end of the day, being an author is still a business. It's just, you are the business now. And that takes a lot of work. That takes a lot of finagling. That takes hustling, okay? Like, if you think of the entire internet as like your corporate office now, like, that's how you need to be conducting yourself, because people pay attention and everything on the internet lasts. And people have discussions like this one author, right? Her name was blocked out on Threads, right? But for the people who know who that author is, you can bet your bottom dollar that if I was an author and I knew who she was, I would not at this point be like, oh, let me network with her. Let me read her book. Let me promote her. Let me do X, Y, and Z with her, because I'm like, she spins out. No, because it is so easy on the internet as an author to go down with a ship that you're not even on. A collateral wave caught you, and now your boat is also sinking. It's work. Like, and also I think people underestimate the things that are paid for, right? Because, and I'm not talking about like ads or anything like that, but like even a decent cover, like, you have to network with a good cover artist, because a lot of times for the successful books, part of that is just the cover artist also promoting the book as part of their portfolio. So you're reaching more people. And it's just like, you have to network. You have to have people who are going to be like, I want to help you share and show and tell your book. And that is not easy to do. And it's part of the reason why I'm always like, you need community. You absolutely need community, especially if you want to be an indie author. Like if you want to be trad, I don't know nothing about that. I've never been on that side of publishing. But even then, from the outside looking in, they have community too. There's a reason why they blurb each other's books. There's a reason why they show up in similar lists. There's a reason why they show up on each other's pages. Like, it's still a community. Nothing about this is truly done in isolation. And even your most successful authors, even if they don't show up on the internet, I guarantee you they're in somebody's inbox talking to them. I guarantee you that they are on panels networking with people. Even if you are like, oh, well, they only have like 200 followers on Twitter. If they're as successful as they are, I promise you it's something that you do not see. It is some real life, quiet networking that's just not for the public eye. But it's there. It's there. That was a rant. That was a rant. But it's something that I feel like there are so many things about some very loud, opinionated indie authors that I'm just kind of like, yeah, but babes, you didn't follow the steps. You didn't do all the things that you were supposed to do, right? You just dropped the book and ran, and now you're like, it's not working. It wasn't worth it. And I'm like, you dropped the book and ran. There's more to it than that. Okay. Getting off my soapbox, looking back at the comments. Author K. McCoy is here. Hello. Welcome, love. I hope you are doing well. The people who are doing it full time are putting out books back to back to back, and sometimes that quality be dipping. Here's the thing. I think it's not so much about how many books you put out. I think it's more so about the quality of the books. There's definitely a difference between quality and quantity, and you have to figure out which crowd you're catering to, because the crowd that's going to fly through books left and right, they're a lot more forgiving of like plot repetitions, or if it's like same character, different book, right? They're going to be a lot more forgiving of that. But if you're going for quality, it's just like, you're probably not matching that quantity. You're probably not dropping a book every month or every 3 months. It's kind of unrealistic. Like, you have to choose whichever path you're going to go down. But I mean, there are options. You got to find out what works for you. Let's see here. The authors that I know who write full time with no other job write 40 plus hours a week. And they drop 1 to 2 books yearly on top of participating in anthologies. Yep. Yep. And I think, especially as someone who's organizing anthology, those are a lot of work, y'all. Putting together an anthology is a lot of work, and I think the work is worth it, but I think it's also something worth mentioning that I have definitely seen anthologies where I'll put it like this, right? Magic and the Melanin. My first anthology was last year when I did the Stygian collection, right? I have a short story. It's called Burn. If you want to see it, it is linked down in the description box below. But I've also been accepted into Faya for their upcoming issue. It comes out next week, actually, on October 1st. Literally next week, a week from today. There's a link down in the description box below for that if you want to look into it. And then my third anthology is going to be the one that I'm organizing, Magic and the Melanin. So you can pre-order that now, right? But the reason I have only participated in those anthologies is because a lot of indie anthologies do not pay their authors. And I understand why. Because it's like, if you don't have a big upfront budget, it is impossible to promise to pay so many authors X amount. So with Violet, they advertise on their submissions that they pay, 8 cents per word. And it's just like, that's huge for an author, right? Especially an indie author, right? But with other anthologies, part of the reason I never participated in them is because it's just like, you have to give up the rights for your story, and you're expected to help with the promotion, but you're also not getting paid any royalties off of it, right? The editing team makes the royalties so that they can, roll it back into their next project, which is cool or whatever, and I respect it. But it's also like, if you're trying to write full time, you have to at some point leverage, is the exposure worth the amount of work and effort it's going to take in order to make these things work. And that's part of the reason why with Magic and the Melanin, I am so heavily like, please pre-order this so that we can pay the authors so that this is worth their time, right? Everything after the release date, which is February 18th, that's going to go to the Melanin Library. So all the books sold after the release date are going to go to the Melanin Library so that we can roll that over into supporting the library and into our next project, right? But everything before that is going to the authors. So it's just kind of like there has to be a balance to that, because one thing that I personally with my brand never want to do is make it seem like, oh, the people who are pouring into this are getting nothing out of it. Like, I never want to be like, oh, authors are showing up for the Melanin Library, but they're not getting anything out of it in return, you know? And it's just like, yeah, you gotta, everything is not on the up and up with indie authoring. And that also makes it difficult when you are trying to network and you are trying to like migrate to being full time. It can be difficult. It can be super difficult. But yeah. Let's see here. Really Love Listen said those folks who come out or claim to come out with 30 to 100 books are interesting, and it's usually a cozy mystery. No shade, but the storyline stays the same with new places added. Yeah, I mean, I think that's a whole conversation to be had. The idea of novelty versus tried and true. I feel like there's space for both, but I feel like there's this. I saw it on Threads. Don't hate me, but there's this lady who was just like, she doesn't subscribe to the idea that every book needs to be novel. Every book doesn't need to be brand new, different. And it's just like, after you have a career, it's like you can expect certain things from this author. And I feel like there's a happy medium where it's just like you have a brand, but every book is not the same, right? Because I know for me, y'all know me, my brand is I write books about Black girls who aren't all that nice. And every book that you get from me is definitely going to have a complex Black girl as the main character, as the protagonist, antagonist, whoever, right? There's going to be layers to it. That's what I write. And she's not going to be nice. She's not going to be nice, mostly because I personally am not a nice person in real life. And so it's just kind of like, yeah, no, I'm not going to pretend. That's what I said earlier. You can't really separate your real life from the things that you write, right? But also, that's just what I prefer to read. That's what I want more of. And as Toni Morrison said, you have to write the book that you want to read. So if that's what I want to read, that's what I'm going to write. However, it's like, even if that stays consistent throughout my books, I never want to be like, oh, you can just take Brandy and drag and drop her into another book, right? Like, no, it's still going to have its own level of like its own world. But at the same time, I write fantasy, right? Like, if you get a book from me, you can expect that it's going to be a third world high fantasy story. You can expect that there's going to be a Black love interest. You can expect that there's going to be a unique deities or world lore for that specific book. Like, you can expect those things. However, I feel like that's consistent, but that's not repetition, you know? And I feel like there's this push for everything to be so completely different between an author's works, especially since there is so much like genre hopping right now. It's just like you can pick up a book from an author and it be like a cozy mystery or whatever. And then the next one, they're writing like a slasher thriller. And it's just like, whoa, how do we get here? And it's just like, okay. And then after that, you know, they're writing a historical romance. And then after that, they're writing, you know, final girl, you know, horror or whatever. And it's just like, okay, we're just bouncing all over the place. And there can still be themes, but I'm also like, I don't know, May. I feel like I miss the days when you could expect, like, if you pick up a book from Beverly Jenkins, you know it's going to be a Black romance. Like, you know that, right? I feel like there is some level of predictability that is good for your brand, you know? But I think things change with time, so I think it'll be interesting to see. But I still feel like when people know what to expect for you, that's how you build a genuine fan base, and that's how you get successful. Because when I look at the successful indie authors, or even successful trad authors, like, let's be real here, like looking at Kim, if you pick up one of her books, you know it's going to be like a crazy unhinged romantic fantasy with a black woman as the lead. Like, that's what she writes. And it's great and it's wonderful. And she has a slew of books, but they all fall into that range. Same thing, like I said, with Beverly Jenkins. Same thing with any prolific author, like Toni Morrison even. Like, it's going to be something heavy in that book that she's writing. Like, it's not for the faint of heart. But that doesn't mean it's bad, Huh. Interesting. I'm thinking out loud. Let me get back to the point. Also, author Kay McCoy, thank you. Thank you for saying that my rants are beautiful and on point. I appreciate it. I'd really be over here like, I don't know, man. I'm just out here rambling. Y'all really here for this? That's crazy. That's wild. I love you guys for that. It takes more than a pretty cover, pity reads, and a trope to be a successful author. Ooh, Relove Listen said it. I didn't. But I feel like, okay, this is my unpopular opinion, and then I'm going to leave it alone, and I'm not going to rant on it on the public live. But I feel like there is a slew of authors who really get their feelings hurt when they have a pretty cover, and that's it. And I feel like that needs to be evaluated. But that's all I'm going to say on it. Full-time authors, we log hours and do tons of personal development. Patience is key because learning to do almost everything alone is lots of time. It's that part. And I feel like, I have a lot of takes now that I'm actually thinking about it. But I also feel like there's a slew of authors that could benefit from like practicing the craft of writing and learning the craft of writing. I feel like so many people study marketing and not enough people study how to write a good book. And I feel like we should evaluate that. Like, I don't know, babes, have we thought about watching a YouTube video about character development? It doesn't have to be long, but I also feel like as a person and an author who's existed, I have definitely gotten less than stellar reviews in my response to it after I was mad and in my feelings about it. Once I got over it, I was like, okay, well, let me log this so that I can be mindful for my next book, right? Let me figure out how to do X, Y, and Z so that it's better for my next book, right? And I feel like there is a demographic of people who would rather be angry and that's it. Like, we never move past anger to let's improve this, And I feel like that's where you start getting to dangerous territory. Let's see here. D2D royalties exist with split payments. I refuse to put together an anthology where I can't pay authors. Yeah, I refuse to participate in an anthology where I'm not getting paid. Honestly, unless it's for a good reason. Like, unless it's for like a homie, or if it's like I believe in the cause, or I feel like the exposure is going to be enough of a payment, right? I just generally can't. I can't support giving a story away for free. Like, if I'm going to give a story away for free, I can do that on my own website and I can offer it as a freebie sign up to get people into my writing. I don't need to give it away for somebody else. And I feel like that is a big thing that a lot of people don't contend with. It's just like indie authoring is definitely for sure networking, but it's also mutual networking, right? It's not just, okay, you get something from me. It's like, okay, we get something from each other. It's mutually beneficial. And I don't see it. Yeah. There are opportunities out there, but you really kind of have to pick and choose, especially if you are trying to be successful and make money and have a brand. And I feel like that's the other thing, because I'll say this, right? Personal experience. Magic in the Melanin is an adult fantasy anthology, right? So we are looking for adult fantasy stories from Black authors, right? If we are looking to put together this anthology to promote it, right? One thing that we do want is people who have a backlog where we can point the readers, because that's, in my mind, the point of an anthology. If you read an anthology and you like an author, that makes you want to go look up that author, right? So it's just kind of like, if you don't write adult fantasy, that's not to say that you can't or shouldn't submit. It's just to say that the readers who pick up the anthology are looking for more adult fantasy authors. It's the same thing. Like, if you're participating, part of the reason why I don't participate in young adult anthologies is because even though my characters I write new adult, so it's crossover. I write adult stories. So it's like, there's no point in me being in a young adult anthology and then pointing them to my books that are really meant for an adult audience. Even if it's new adult, if it's like 18, 19, 20, right? Because that's where my characters are aged, right? That's still adult fiction, right? And the content, the things that they're dealing with are heavier topics. They're not in high school. They're not dealing with their parents. They're not dealing with typical YA themes, tropes, and concepts. And I feel like that's another thing that could be discussed. There's a lot about this authoring thing that could be discussed, honestly, as I'm going into it. But I digress. I digress. Let's see here. Expectations are everything. Amen. Amen. I think it's okay for authors to change up the stories and genres they write, but they shouldn't expect their existing audience to move with them. They also need to be clear about what they're writing. Ooh, not Ben coming in with a word. I feel like that is definitely something that I've seen a lot on Twitter, and I'm not going to name any names here or the after chat, but I'm thinking of one author in particular who has voiced that they dislike that their audience has not done what they believe they would do when they both genre hopped and age range hopped. And it's just kind of like, that is the wrong expectation to have. If I read romance and I found you because I read romance, you cannot then be upset at me because you decided to write something that was not a romance and I did not read it. I was a fan of the genre. I was a fan of the story. I was not a fan of you. And I feel like a lot of authors, especially with that debut, if it does well, or God forbid they have a duology and the duology does well, and they're like, okay, I got a fan base. And then they write something completely different, and then that book is just not doing what they thought it would do. And they're like, well, hey, where y'all at? And they were like, you're not one of us anymore. What are you talking about? Like, you did something different. And then they're big mad. They're big mad. And it's just like, you did this to yourself, homie. I don't know how to help you. But I digress. Resting on pretty covers is not a flex in 2024, and there are too many great free 99 online resources to lead authors towards improving in their craft. Yup. And this is going to be, I don't even know if it's going to be controversial, but I know that some people are going to hear this and it rubs them the wrong way. So I'm just going to apologize in advance. But I also feel like if you are trying to make a career out of anything, you are going to get to a point where you have to get past free only. There is going to be a point where you have to invest in what it is that you're doing. Just like if you're an artist, you're going to have to at some point invest into buying your own paint. You're going to have to invest in buying a canvas. You're going to have to invest in actually doing some things. And it's just kind of like the same is true of anything, right? Like if you're going to play a sport, you got to invest in getting a ball. You got to invest in getting the equipment. You have to put some money into it. That may include going to a workshop. That may include going to a training. That may include going to where other people are and signing up to interact with other professionals so that you understand how other professionals navigate the space. And it also shows you or gives you a network of people so that you can do what it is that you need to do to be successful. I think starting out at free 99, free and under, is great. Wise even. Get into it. Exhaust all of your free resources, right? But I think if you're going to be serious about having a career in any field, you are going to hit a roadblock where free and under is not going to cut it anymore. And I'm not saying you got to go out here and drop $500,000, $600,000, $800,000 on a course or personal coaching. I'm not saying that. I'm saying that at some point you're going to hit up against a paywall. And I'm saying that it's okay if you're serious about it to cross over the paywall and to recognize that as you grow, right? Because my first cover that I ever did for Keeping Promises, that cover was free 99. Okay. I was not paying for anything at that point. Right. But as I grew as an author, as I grew in this, as I realized that this is going to be a career, Then it's like, yeah, I started being like, okay, I need to get an editor. I was like, okay, I need to get a cover artist. I was like, okay, I need to read a couple of books on how this marketing works. I need to start networking differently. I need to start asking questions. I need to start figuring this out so that I can actually be successful in this and not just saying that I want to be successful, you know? And that's why I always say it's a journey. It's okay if you're not starting out shelling out all the money, right? I don't recommend that. I do recommend like walking yourself into the deep end versus jumping straight in, right? But I do think that at some point you need to get to the deep end. However you get there, if you're trying to have a career. Now, if you're a hobby author, that's completely different. If you're not trying to have your writing pay bills, that's completely different. If you're not trying to be full time, that's completely different. That's a different mindset. I'm talking specifically for the authors who are like, I want to do this with my life. This is it. I don't want to have a 9-to-5. I don't want to have outside income. I want to be able to do this. That requires a different level of commitment than someone who is perfectly fine keeping their 9-to-5 for the rest until they retire. Those are completely different mindsets. And I think when you're getting your information and your guidance off of the internet, that's also something important to keep in mind. Are you taking advice from someone who has, I don't want to say privilege, but has different expectations, right? Because it's also like, I try to be clear when I'm talking to people like, hey, I have a husband. That's why I can do the things that I do the way that I do, right? Everybody doesn't have that kind of support. So it's just like, you also have to be mindful when you're taking advice from people where they're coming from and make sure that they're not setting you up for failure, right? Because one thing I would never tell anybody is just like, oh, you should just quit your job and do this full time. I don't know, babes. Do you have a plan? Is that what you really want to do? You got your savings covered? You got your bills covered? Like, what happens if this doesn't work out? Like, do you have a plan B? Do you know how long you're going to try this before you have to like reevaluate? Because it's like, if you do, cool, like live your life. But I'm also not going to be like, oh, you should quit your job because I do this full time and that's how you, nah, homie, do what works for you. Do what works for you. And listen to people who tell you that. Don't listen to people who are like, yes, you should do this because that's what I did. And now I'm a multimillionaire. Please be mindful that if someone's a multimillionaire and you're paying them thousands of dollars, you are the reason they're a multimillionaire, not because they're selling that much product. But I digress. If you think, oh, no, hold on. That's not what that says. I think if you age range hop, there should be a clear distinction between your books. Like Meg Cabot's adult books read differently from her YA books. But a lot of new authors, their books read the same. You know? Vina, say that again in the after chat. But yeah. I think, you know what? I'll say it here. I believe that there are a lot of newer authors who are bigger, their britches are too big for them. I will say that. The shoes that they are trying to walk in, they are not ready to fill. I think they think more highly of themselves because of the internet, because of this current age of hyping people up, because of the immediate feedback. And they think that they can do something that it took other authors years to learn and master. It is difficult to write for a different age range, mostly because I think a lot of people believe that, oh, if I can write for an adult audience, I can write for anyone else. Let me tell you something. It is harder to write for children than it is to write for adults. Adults, you can have longer sentences. Adults, you can have nuance. Adults, you can have a little, they give you a little bit more forgiveness. Children are harsh critics. Okay. If they don't like it, they're not going to read it. If they don't like it, they're not going to pay attention to it. And if you have to have a message, you have to communicate in a way that's going to hold their attention, but you also have to do it in such a succinct period of time. Like, it is so much harder to write for children and middle grade and young adults. If you're doing it correctly, if you're doing it right, it's also difficult. It takes talent. And I feel like the people who are like, oh, I can just jump between whenever I feel like it. Either you're crazy talented or everybody else just is exaggerating. I don't know. I feel like there's some nuance to be had in that conversation of like, why are you writing a middle grade book? I would just like to know. I genuinely would like to know. I think there are some authors who are compelling at it. I think there are other authors who are chasing a bag. And because it's eluding them for whatever reasons. But I'll leave it at that. Usually people aren't a fan of an author. They are a fan of that author's writing. Big difference. Absolutely. And you still have to invest your time even when you can't yet afford to invest your funds. That part, huge thing. And I don't think people, especially newer people that I see on the internet asking for advice, recognize that. Like, it takes a lot of time. It takes time. Like, you have to figure things out. Saying my husband works, make your life yours mentally. No one else can be you. That's your job. Exactly. See, Tremaine, you get it. Everybody's trying to write picture books right now, and a lot of them aren't good. I think there's a place for picture books, but I also think there's a place for children's books. And I haven't seen so many of them where it's just like, because I feel like, I don't know if y'all remember this because they're not middle grade, but do y'all remember Junie B. Jones, or what is her name? Amber Brown? Like those they were like super thin. They're children's books, but there's that step in between children's books and middle grade books. And I feel like people don't write children's books for the kids who like to read. And it's just like, people are like, oh, the kids aren't reading anymore. It's like, even if they wanted to, y'all are not giving them books to read, because there's only so many times that you can read a big picture book and before you're like, I want something different. And it's just like, those books really had me feeling like, oh, I'm ready for like third grade. I'm ready for fourth grade. Like, I'm ready for these chapter books. Yeah, I know that they're chapter books, but they weren't middle grade. Like, the kids were still extremely young. Like, it was still like, there was only like in some of them there was only like 5 or 6 chapters in them. Like, they were very, very beginner. Like, even if they were middle grade, they were such at the beginning spectrum of it that it's just like, you could have that. Because it also reminds me of like the Magic Tree House. That's also like a chapter book, but you read them in like the 3rd or 4th grade. Like, they're elementary school books. They're not middle school books, right? And it's just like, I don't see people talking about those anymore. Early readers, I think that's literally what they were called. Yeah, something like that. But back in the day, they didn't have middle grade everything. They just fell under the category of children's books. I mean, for me, even like in my memory, I separate middle grade from children's books by like what was available at my elementary school versus my middle school. Because like my middle school was not carrying Junie B. Jones or Amber Brown, or like I think even Frindle was like on the lower spectrum of that, right? Just small chapter books. Like, my middle school was not carrying the Magic Tree House. But it's also stuff that I enjoyed reading as a kid, where it's just easy to read, and they still had pictures in them, right? It wasn't a picture book though. You know? Basically kid novellas. Yeah. Yeah. I would like to see people actually trying to be, I'll say, not innovative, but return to what actually made them readers in the first place. Because I guarantee you that every kid was not out there reading Aragon and Lord of the Rings and the book that shall not be named all the time. There were smaller books in between those, right? And it's just like, every book does not need to be a 500, 600, 700, 800 page behemoth, especially in the young adult category. And if it's going to be a middle grade book, I'm also like, those need to be shorter too. That's part of like, even as an adult, I'm like, yo, I don't want to read this entire book. I feel like it should be done. I feel like this book should be completed by now, right? And it's just like, kids don't think like that, especially now, especially not growing up on YouTube and TikTok and Reels and Shorts. Like, they not looking for those behemoths like we were, you know? We grew up in the age of, okay, we finna be watching this one show when we're going to grow up with these kids in real time on TV, right? Like, they're going to start at like 11, 12, and we're going to follow them all the way through until they graduate college, right? That's the type of entertainment we were consuming, right? So it's like, yes, we wanted longer books, but these little short, they're not invested in anything. So nah, homie, give these children shorter books, give them shorter, denser books, like have something happen and just like, let that be it. And also, stop trying to put such heavy topics in them. Like, there's a place for heavy topics, but like, let some of these books be fun. Oh my God. Oh my God. Some of these books are just depressing as an adult. And I'm like, why would I give this to a child? Why would I give this to a child? This is not fun or enjoyable for anyone involved. This is crazy. This is wild. Anywho, that is my rant for today. Thank you for coming to the Melanin Chat. It is now 10 after, or coming up on 10 after. So we are going to be switching over to the after chat. If you'd like to join, you can join the Patreon at patreon.com/written-to-melanin. $5 gets you in. You can also join the membership program, which I think that should show up on YouTube now. It should say like join. So I'm still getting the Discord worked out with that. So if anybody joins, you'll get the replay of the after chat for today, but in the future it'll be live on the channel. So yeah. Also, shout out to the Ebony Mystique. I did not see you come in, but hello, welcome, love. I hope you're doing well. But yeah, that being said, you guys, get into all the links for sure if you have not already. Please pre-order Magic and the Melanin, a Black fantasy anthology. It's going to be great. Black editors, Black authors, Black artists, Black audiobook. It's the blackest book that you're going to be able to get in February. Okay, just pre-order it. It's going to be great. It's going to be amazing. But yeah, that is it. I hope you guys have an amazing day. I hope I see you in the after chat, but if not, I'll be back in 2 weeks. And yeah, that's it. So until next time, you guys, I hope your days are lovely and your books are interesting. Bye, guys. Oh, like the stream if you haven't already. Okay, bye.